Hello YouTube and welcome to Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily focus on Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and if you want to help me out, I have a Patreon and Discord, more info at the end of the video. So one of the things I'm often asked as a Pathfinder YouTuber is, what do you dislike about Pathfinder? And listen, there are a few things that I would do differently, but one of my major complaints is that there's often one clearly right choice for Pathfinder, and that applies to subclasses. Now, I want to make this clear. Subclass is actually a fan term. It's not an official Paizo term. In Pathfinder 2e and Starfinder 2e, most classes will have a choice to make at first level involving their class path. Rogues have rackets, oracles have mysteries, barbarians have instincts, so on and so forth. You get the idea. These choices are collectively called subclasses by the community, and that's the term I'm going to be using for this video. The thing about these subclasses is that often there is just one that's better than the others. The Thief Rogue subclass is the only thing in the entire game that lets you add your dexterity modifier to damage instead of strength. Maestro Bard lets you turn your bardic ability that lasts only 1 round into something that lasts 3 to 4 rounds. Bomber Alchemists let you do a huge variety of different types of damage at a moment's notice, so on and so forth. And that, in my mind, creates a problem because if there's one best choice, it often leads players to say that you have to take a certain choice. If you listen to commenters on Reddit or YouTube or Discord or the Paizo forums, they'll often say things like, "You have to play X or you're doing it wrong." That kind of thing just rubs me the wrong way. So a while ago, I asked my YouTube community tab for suggestions on underutilized subclasses, and I wanted to present some of their arguments along with a few of my own here for you today. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that these subclasses are the best, just that they are underutilized. In other words, if you build this character, you may not be the perfect character, but you will be solvent, able to do your job, and you may have access to a few abilities that you might not have known about. Oh, and just to be clear, today we are covering pure subclasses, not subclasses that also require a class archetype, like Avenger Rogue or Spellshot Gunslinger. Now, before we get started on the official list, I do have a few honorable mentions. Kaiser and Jackie suggested the Drifter Gunslinger. Drifter seems pretty good to me because as soon as you start combat, you can, as a free action, draw a ranged and melee weapon, even if you're unprepared for combat. And on your first turn in combat, you get to move a bit for free. Plus, they are just good at being either a melee or ranged character, making them an excellent switch hitter, all-arounder kind of character. Another honorable mention goes to the Flurry Ranger. A lot of time I see people say that the Precision Ranger does more damage than the Flurry Ranger, and I think the numbers back that up, but it's not a big difference. And Flurry Rangers, especially with feats like Twin Takedown, have a much better chance of hitting on their iteratives, meaning that you have a better chance of doing something if you roll a nat 1 on your first attack. In addition to that, Precision Rangers deal precision damage, so Flurry Ranger is vastly superior if you're fighting things immune to precision damage like ghosts or oozes. A third honorable mention goes to the Eldritch Trickster Rogue. These are the rogues who get spellcasting multiclass at level 1 and can start sneak attacking with spells as early as level 2. I put this in the honorable mentions category because it runs close to my no class archetypes rules, but it technically isn't there. Sneak attacking with Ignition, which can be done in melee or at range, deals a good amount of damage, and having a non-physical damage type to attack with, especially if you go up against something that resists all physical damage. Plus, having access to some utility spells early on is really great. I'm always a fan of the spell Helpful Steps or Tailwind. In addition, Eldritch Tricksters are technically spellcasters, and this lets them use any wand or scroll from their tradition without possibility of failure, further increasing their utility. I find them really solid. And to round out the honorable mentions, I have a few lightning round suggestions. Paradox of Opposites Witch has a really good hex cantrip that can both heal and deal damage. Tempest Oracle gets a lot of lightning damage abilities, and their curse drawbacks are pretty minor even at Cursebound 4. And finally, the Liberation Champion, if built right, can let your entire whole party step, ignoring difficult terrain if their reaction is triggered. But let's move on to the actual list. In at number 5, we have a suggestion from Per5 for the Spirit Barbarian. I feel like most people see the 6 extra damage from the Giant Instinct Barbarian and never look back, and honestly, it's pretty strong, I'm not going to lie, especially when compared to the Spirit Barbarian's 3 spirit damage bonus. But importantly, that bonus damage is spirit damage and is rarely resisted compared to the whole slew of things that can resist all physical damage. And if you find something that is immune to spirit damage, like constructs, you can always choose to just reduce the bonus to 2 extra damage and make it physical. And as you gain levels, the difference isn't that much bigger. At level 7, the difference between the two is still just 3 points of damage, and at level 18, it's 5. And as a trade-off, the Spirit Barbarian can use any weapon, not only one sized for giants. That means that you can actually use that random greatsword you found in that dungeon as opposed to the Giant Instinct Barbarian that has to use only giant-sized weapons if they want to get the full use of their abilities. But the Spirit Barbarian also gets a slew of other abilities. First off, all of their weapon attacks are considered Ghost Touch, which is amazing. Don't have to waste a property rune getting Ghost Touch, and it will work with specific weapons which normally can't take property runes. You just have to be raging. At level 9, they resist any damage originating from any undead, which is great if you're in an undead-heavy campaign. Also, they gain Void Energy Resist. On top of that, they can get a Spirit Barbarian exclusive feat that gives them essentially concealment against any ranged attacks, and at level 12 they can grab the feat Spirit's Wrath, which gives them a 120-foot ranged strike that acts as a melee strike, that is to say, uses your strength bonus. It doesn't do a lot of damage, it doesn't add your rage bonus to damage, but it is a strength attack at long range that doesn't require you to switch weapons. It's pretty good. And again, that feat is Spirit Instinct exclusive. By the way, thank you to YouTubers Pathfinder and Swing Ripper for helping me math out that part of the script. For number 4, we have a two-way tie between the Inexorable Iron Magus and the Twisting Tree Magus. Chris suggested Inexorable Iron, Kokami03 suggested Twisting Tree. So it seems that the quote-unquote correct meta for Magus is Laughing Shadow or Sparkling Targe, and don't get me wrong, those are pretty good. Laughing Shadow can teleport, and Sparkling Targe can get pretty darn good defense. But the Inexorable Iron Magus is the two-handed one, and because of that, you can pretty easily get strong reach weapons like the Ranseur, a D10 reach polearm, and you can still use the shield spell to shore up your defense. The Twisting Tree subclass goes a step further, letting you turn an ordinary spell staff into a D8 reach weapon with parry. And better yet, with a feat, you can add property runes to your spell staff, allowing you to have a staff with some extra spell slots stored in it, and also have Flaming Shock Frost runes on it. And as far as I know, that is the only way to get a property rune on a spell staff. Really solid, and it's strange that they aren't talked about more. In particular, I want to highlight Twisting Tree, as one of the major issues with the Magus is that they have very few spell slots. But if you get a nice spell staff, such as a Staff of Fire, not only does it give you an extra cantrip that you can spell strike with, but it gives you a few extra spell slots per day that you can use in a pinch. That way you can focus your spells on things that you can spell strike with, while having some area effect spells on standby in your staff. Coming in at number 3, I have one of my personal picks, the School of Rooted Wisdom Wizard. Most of the time, people seem to be pretty down on wizards in general, as mentioned by Logitastic. And for the most part, if wizards are part of the conversation, people usually mention the School of Battle Magic or maybe the School of Gates for its ability to get people into or out of trouble. And those are great, don't get me wrong, but let me introduce you to the School of Rooted Wisdom. First of all, most wizard schools give you 3 bonus spells at rank 1 and 2 bonus spells every rank after. Rooted Wisdom gives you 2 and 1, but then you pick a sort of subclass, and you get another set of spells from that. Because of this, you can pretty easily find some set of bonus spells that work for you. Plus, every School of Rooted Wisdom caster gets their focus spell, Halcyon Mists, which is amazing, because it does 3 things. First of all, it gives someone within 30 feet some temporary hit points. Then it grants concealment for them for a round. And finally, it just eliminates one source of persistent damage from a list. Hey, does anyone remember that pre-remaster monster that gives you persistent bleed that you can only get rid of on a nat 20 and you had to make a counteract check to heal them while they were bleeding, it's the Bearded Devil. Ronald the Rules Lawyer made a video about how nasty they were. Sure, they aren't in the remaster, but they are still a valid monster to use, and you can find them in older adventures and adventure paths. Now your School of Rooted Wisdom wizard can just snap their fingers, spend a focus point, and end the bleed. No counteract check required because this is not a healing effect. Or maybe your friend is down and suffering ongoing fire damage. No, they're not. Bam, snap your fingers and they aren't taking ongoing fire damage. Cannot recommend this subclass enough. Moving on to number 2, Spectre 053 and Link 999 and a few others mentioned anything other than the Resentment Witch, in particular Primal Witches, like Ripple in the Deep. Look, the Primal spell list is awesome. It grants healing and damaging spells like Electric Arc and Fireball, and it has plenty of utility spells like Feet to Fins. And having GM'd for a Ripple in the Deep Witch, let me say, the ability to dazzle or even blind enemies is way stronger than you think, especially as a single action that you can do every round. And better yet, if you sustain a Hex, you can push enemies away from you, no save, allowing you to get out of dodge quickly if some enemy with Reactive Strike comes near. Let me repeat that. If an enemy with a longsword and Reactive Strike comes near, you can sustain a spell to blind an enemy 30 feet away, and as long as your familiar is in your square, push the enemy away, no save, and then you can cast a spell without eating Reactive Strike. And lastly, for number 1, we have the one that no one suspected, Toxicologist, the Poisoner Alchemist, suggested by Wrath as Equalv. I hope I got that right. Listen, I get it. Poison is often seen as super weak. There's a lot of stuff out there that is just straight up immune to poison, like constructs and most undead. But the Toxicologist fixes that. If something is immune or resistant to poison, the Toxicologist's poison does acid damage to them. This, coupled with the Toxicologist's base vials doing poison damage, meaning your attacks do either poison or acid damage, whichever is worse for the enemy, is pretty great. Having all of your attacks dealing essentially 2 types of damage take the worst is fantastic against most enemies. Plus, if an enemy is immune to poison, that doesn't stop the Toxicologist's poison from doing their thing. And with the latest errata, it only takes a single action to use Quick Alchemy to make any poison you know, draw it, and poison your weapon. Having played through Triumph of the Tusk with someone who did this, it was surprisingly effective. Plus, there are a ton of feats that just make Toxicologists nasty. Blowgun Poisoner lets you poison even if your blowgun does no damage, plus crits make them take 1 step worse on the poison save. Pernicious Poison gives you straight up bonus damage on all of your poison strikes, even if the person succeeds their save, which remember turns into acid damage if they're immune to poison. Sticky Poison can keep your weapon poisoned even after you strike someone, and Pinpoint Poisoner gives all enemies a -2 to saves against your poison if they were off guard when you stuck them. And then there is the Sargassum Vial. Our Poisoner used this to great effect in our campaign. Now it is incapacitation, so you only have a short time in a campaign when it's useful, but anyone who inhales this in a 15-foot burst starts just tripping like crazy. Failing means that each enemy gets one of 4 effects, and each is absolutely debilitating. And remember, if you're an alchemist above level 5, the DC becomes your class DC, and you can make them for free. I've had entire fights turn into a massive joke because of this stuff. Nasty. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Hey, as a reminder, I have a Patreon. I'm going to try and post something fun there once a month, but honestly, it's just a way to keep this channel financially viable. Just a few bucks a month, and I'm toying with the idea of adding a limited higher tier where you can request a specific video. Let me know what you think. I also have a Discord channel, link in the description below. Drop by and say hi, I would love to talk to you. And make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That tells not only me, but also YouTube that you like this kind of content and would like to see more. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming.